But welcome everyone to the Sean Trey Show. I've got a really awesome guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell everyone who you are and kind of a little bit about yourself and what you do, brother?
I'm David John Clark. That's my stage name, as they say. I'm an actor based out of Adelaide, South Australia, and a podcast host for a podcast I call The Late Bloomer Actor. That being me. I'm the late bloomer actor.
Talk to me about that. Why? What's the late blooming actor?
Well, I've been doing acting about 10 years now, pretty much full on here in Adelaide, and I've always been someone to give back and to share, give quid pro quo sort of stuff. And I was invited to an acting school here once as a local actor. They've asked me to come in and talk to their students. And I'd been running a thing online to try and raise money to go and do a school. I'd been offered a scholarship, which was a 50-50 thing, but still needed a lot of money. So I started an online fundraising campaign, and I called it the Late Bloomer Actor, just thinking, I'm 40 years old. I was 40 then. I've just turned 50. And I remember the host of the class, he turned around and he said, we love how your branding is the Late Bloomer Actor. And I went, never even thought about it. Never even thought about it being a brand. It was just a name I came up with. And then last year when I decided I wanted to do a podcast, I was thinking about how could I run a podcast, to put information out there. The same reason most people have a podcast. And I just said, well, let's go with the Late Bloomer Actor. And there it was.
That's awesome. One of the things I love is I love the idea of giving back. I think that whether we realize it or not, there are these great mentors that would come along in our life. Did you ever? One day I was on a set of a movie. I was working on Angels and Demons, and I got to work with the actor Armin Mueller-Stahl, the great actor. He was in some amazing movies like The Rainmaker and so many. Trying to think about other movies he was in. I think he was in. Was he in Blade movies as well as one of the villains? Look him up. Armin Mueller-Stahl is a great actor.
I know the name. I just can't put the picture in my head.
He was playing like in Eastern Promises. He plays like the Russian mob boss.
Wow.
And that's such a great movie. But we were on set, and he looked down at me, and I was just working as a crew member. I was a crew member actor. I was a stand-in, so I was standing there while they did all the lighting for the whole movie. And he just started asking me questions. How long have you been here? Are you a native to LA? How long have you been in film? What are you doing here? Why? And then he started giving me advice. He just started giving me all this information. I was just like, didn't ask for this, but wow, thank you. And it was this beautiful idea of, sometimes when you have knowledge, the best thing you can do is share it. And so I love that.
And it's big in the acting community. A lot of people tend to hold their cards close to their chest, and they don't want to share because they think that it's going to take an opportunity away from them. And I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
That I go, well, no, I don't think it is. We all go through our auditions, and how hard it is to get a role. And sometimes when you're lucky enough to find out information about why you didn't, it can be such a small thing, the color of your eyes, or you're just a bit too tall. So I find that if the role is yours, the role is yours, and you sharing opportunities around isn't going to change that fact. So if you can share and share alike, it's going to come back tenfold. And if you can help one person get an opportunity that they may not have known about, and because you've shared it, they now know about it, then hey, I'm a happier person.
Yeah, I'm all about. I'm a big believer in growing our tribes, growing our teams. People that go places together. So I'm all about that. That was what I loved about Adam Sandler and his crew back in the day. Adam Sandler would pull in the same people in every single movie. And, it didn't matter which movie you were watching, the same group of guys would be there. And, in Wes Anderson's the same. These people that they have their core group of people that they work with. And I think that there is something to be said for, professionalism, but also just sharing the positivity as you work with people and creating a solid network,
Yeah, certainly. Especially in this industry, it's such a tough industry, acting. and you can have so many ups and downs. And if you can have that community and share with each other, then as I said, anything that comes back to you is great. But if you know that you've made someone's career or their journey a little bit brighter, a little bit quicker, then that's brilliant. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and it's always there's always room to grow in this and any professions. But one of the things that I love is that as an actor, um, people give you the ability to embody an interesting character, and I had posted online about seeking out someone who was interested in talk about a certain character that's a really interesting character to me. Now, I one of my favorite movies, and I was sitting down discussing topics to cover, and I was like, there was like how to be resilient, how to, bounce back from challenges, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what? If you go at topics that way, it's going to bore people real fast. And I was like, all right, what are some of the best movies about resilience? And that was like right near the top was Die Hard. And I was like, oh, dude, yeah, what a great movie. What a great movie. And what a great series of movies. Not just a great movie, but like, Die Hard, they have the whole, all of the different series. But, I always come back to my favorite is always going to be one, because,
Always is.
you have, it's the best, it's such the best Christmas movie ever too.
And we have to say there too, because this is a big thing on the internet. It is a Christmas movie. I don't care what people say.
It is. It is a Christmas movie. Doesn't matter what anyone says. He's trying to get home to his family for Christmas. As much as Home Alone is a Christmas movie, this as well is a Christmas
Definitely, 100%.
Just a tad bit more violent, but it's a Christmas movie.
It's a few more expletives than A Christmas Story or something similar.
Right. But it is such a great movie because there was, and I was reading about like, what made this movie so special. And like, if you go online and there's debates, like it was a blending of genres between an action and thriller. It was doing things that no other movie had done at that time. There was suspense. You had these, a cat and mouse game between probably one of the best villains in modern cinema and Hans Gruber. I mean, it's Alan Rickman playing his most Alan Rickman type character,
It's such a loss, awesome. Such a loss that he's passed now too, unfortunately. So,
right.
Because he was, going back to my late bloomer, he was a late bloomer actor. I think someone said his first major role was, he was about 40 or 42. So, and then, to die or to pass, use a better word, to pass so young is just terrible. But certainly this movie made him, that's for sure.
Right. Well, I want to talk to you a couple about then. We're going to come back to Die Hard later. I want to talk a little bit about this late bloomer actor because it is also a topic that I really love. And I love the idea of, you get John, what was it, Bryan Cranston as well. You have certain people that they're not who was the most penultimate late bloomer actor? I mean, Alan Rickman's got to be a great example. Do you have any others that are
Samuel L. Jackson? Is the one I always have on the top of my list that I'd love to get him on the show one day. So I always sort of drop his name out there, hoping that one day I will, because he was the same. He was in the industry a long time, but just never made it per se until his 40s. So there are two types of late bloomers. There's those that have just struggled to, or not struggled, just never made it until later in life, and there's those that have come in later in life. So I think they're both the same type of person as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the things too is we live in such an era of even more so now with the advent of TikTok and Instagram and their rise, where the content is extremely, young person centered, and right now people are looking at followings for actors and other things too, even to get a job. Like, what's your LinkedIn following? It's like, really? You got to have a LinkedIn following to get a job? There are a lot of people who feel stuck later in life and don't feel creative, that don't feel inspired to do things, whether it be to embark upon making the film they always wanted to make, whether it be to learn piano, whether it be to change careers, whatever it might be, whether it be to finally become an entrepreneur. Like I always go back to one of my favorite stories is like KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. That guy had that recipe until late in his life. I think it was in his almost 60s or 70s. And he's like, hey, I know how to make good fried chicken. And he pitched it everywhere. And then finally someone, said, okay, let's try this out.
Took it. Yeah.
And the rest is history. There's KFC, and like, what if Alan Rickman or Samuel L. Jackson or Bryan Cranston, I mean, my goodness, those three, if they had have given up because they didn't make it when they were young, can you imagine Harry Potter with anyone else as Snape? I mean, we're going to be seeing what that looks like as HBO reimagines the series, but I think you could recast every single character in that show. No problem. But not Snape. Alan Rickman was that character. And like Breaking Bad without Bryan Cranston. Could you even imagine that? No way. And I mean, any Samuel L. Jackson role without Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, Pulp Fiction without Samuel L. Jackson.
It just
John Travolta
wouldn't work.
And Samuel. It wouldn't work. They anchored that thing. It was such iconic characters. If they had have quit,
be a different world.
It would be a much poorer world. A much poorer world. And I'm sure there's examples of women who were late bloomers as well.
Yes, I wished I'd opened up. So I had a lot of information on it, on different late bloomers out there. Again, this with the women are a lot different because a lot of them start off in their acting industry very young, and then they disappear, and then they come back. But there's men that do that as well. So there's so many different avenues of way people do it. And you were saying before that don't give up because you just don't know what was coming. It reminds me of a cartoon I once saw of two guys digging in a tunnel. And one guy's been digging with the diamonds at the other end, and he turns around. He's about half a metre away. But the other guy's just slogging away and he's just about to hit the wall. So you do need to find a way that if it's truly a passion, truly a love, to keep going. And when you have those moments of wanting to give up, just step back a little bit and wait. And I think that's where the late bloomers come in, is that they don't turn around and quit. They just keep on going. They might have a break, or they might take a sidebar or something like that, but they do then come back to it and they win in the end.
We're seeing a resurgence of Brendan Fraser right now, and thank goodness, what a great actor and what an awesome human being, But yet he was just kind of shelved. They shelved him. Why? Because whatever the reason was, he wasn't the hot commodity at that time. But I am absolutely looking forward to his performance in the upcoming Killers of the Sunshine Moon. Or of the Killers of the, what is the name?
I haven't heard it. I've everything's been The Whale for me.
Oh, The Whale, but no, the new movie that's going to be huge. The Whale was awesome, but the new movie that's going to be really big is Killers of the Flower Moon by Scorsese.
Wow!
And it is an absolute. It's got him and Leonardo DiCaprio. Essentially, I won't give everything away, but in the early 1900s or the 1920s, the Native Americans were all ushered onto these lands that were really horrible, middle of the U.S., and everyone thought they were absolutely useless. Well, the Osage Indians had this one, reservation, and what they found was it was this huge oil deposit underneath, and they became the richest people in the world. It was the wealthiest place in the world. It was an insane amount of money that they were pulling out of the ground. But there was this huge system of conspiracy to kind of entrap these people and control this money. And people started getting killed off. They started killing off people and funneling the money toward descendants. And it created the early FBI with J. Edgar Hoover sending in the early J men to kind of go in and clean the situation up. And Brendan Fraser plays the main lawman who is running the investigation. So it should be really good.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds brilliant. I haven't heard anything about that. As I said, everything's been the wow. Yeah,
it's definitely a great book. The Killers of the Flower Moon, just finished it. Phenomenal.
Awesome.
But yeah, coming back to resilience and because a late blooming actor, it's the idea of not giving up and and kind of going at it. What have you ever had any situations that you had to kind of tap into your own inner resilience to kind of keep going?
I reckon every time I do an audition,
right.
It's the lack of feedback and the lack of positive responses from the work that you put in, I think. And I think it's the same with podcasts, and you throw your podcast out there. There's people listening, but the podcast world doesn't seem to have the feedback like YouTube videos do as much. And even on my YouTube, because I put my podcast on YouTube, you don't get that feedback. So I think you need that resilience to know that people are hearing you and people are enjoying the product that you're putting out there and enjoying the work that you're doing, even though you might not be getting that feedback back. Because I find that's the hardest thing for me, more so with the acting, because you submit an audition and you don't get it, you don't hear back, because obviously you don't get any feedback from the casting director. So you try not to think, well, I must be because I suck. Because you certainly don't. You got in the room, so they had something there. They wanted to see you, so you have to make sure that you rely on knowing that it can be the smallest thing. But it's those continual negatives or no responses that makes it really hard, and you've got to draw on that resilience, I suppose, to push through and then do the next one.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Again, pulls me back to John McClane. And in that Die Hard movie, and I love that damn movie. One of the things that is awesome about that movie and why I absolutely love it is that the man is faced with an impossible situation, and there is this, whether it be a Die Hard 1, he's got a bomb in the building, and this criminal mastermind. And he finds a way through. And I think that one of the things, like if you go onto the internet and you look up like what makes John McClane like such a great character, why is this character so relatable? Well, first of all, he's funny. He's relatable. People can look at this guy. He's going through a divorce. He's got all these problems going on. He's resilient, and that's something that we all kind of feel. But one of the things that's like, the biggest thing is he's just like us, that relatability, the everyday hero. Like, imagine, we see someone like Chris Hemsworth put into an action movie and you're like, yeah, hell yeah, this guy's going to survive. Like, he looks like the type of guy who survives. He looks like the type of guy who survives and he walks home with my wife or something like that. What I mean? It's like, he looks like that type of guy, I mean, actually I heard Chris Hemsworth was like an absolutely awesome human being and individual, but you know what I mean, versus, and there was a great movie with, what's the actor from Better Call Saul? Bob Odenkirk. Yeah. Bob Odenkirk. So it's Odenkirk.
It's his surname that puts me off every time.
Right? It's so hard. Bob Odenkirk is the greatest, like, everyday actor. And he had this movie that was so well done. And essentially he plays it's kind of like a John Wick. It's kind of a John Wick-esque movie. Nobody. He plays this guy named...
That's a TV series, or was it a movie? That's just come out, hasn't it? It's on my list to watch.
There's a movie.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's so good. It's a very much a movie. It's like a John Wick type thing where he's got this secret everyday past. And what's one of the awesome things is when you see this person who looks like a superhero, and they're pulling off the stuff, you're like, yeah, of course they are. But when you get an everyday guy, like, imagine, like, suddenly someone grabbed you or me and you're like, all right, you've got to crawl down this pipe. You got to go up and down, up this air conditioning shaft and deactivate this explosive at the top. Can you pull it off? I'd be like, dude, I don't, me saving this bill. Serious? My back. I've got a herniated disc. It hurts really bad. My shoulder's aching, But that's what makes it relatable, is these people that have these faults. And those faults are what, I think makes the great character. Because if a character is invincible, there's nothing interesting about that character. And one of the ways that I love this and what they did with the character that was so genius is the glass on the floor. And he's going through this building with his feet cut up, he can barely walk. Can you imagine like walking through a room, like one cut with glass is awful, right? And to have your feet shredded to pieces and you still have to do it. And then he duct tapes them shut. Like,
well, look at
dude,
most of us,
yeah.
We get a paper cut on our hand and we're done. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But that comes down to that resilience thing that you're talking about, because he knew he couldn't go back. He can't. He has to go forward. It's about putting people into situations where you have to accomplish something. You have to get to the end, and you know why, and you can, and you just got to push through. And he did that. So it's a good metaphor for life, really.
And exactly where and what you were talking about with the acting. And that diamond that was at the bottom of the hole, I think that one of the things too is, let's imagine, like right now I'm slogging with my podcast, and it's not easy. I keep waking up, I get my edits done, I get them up, and making sure I get my reels cut, making sure I get everything then posted, while balancing my 9 to 5, while also being the primary parent for a 7-year-old girl, and also like my full-time business of supporting my wife's career as a musician. It's tough. But if someone told me that next year, this time, things blew wide open and I would have a team helping me and it would be just a whole different game, I'd look at him and go, yeah, right, dude. I right. Sure. Okay, cool. But you don't know if what you're doing is about ready to blow wide open, because there have been those moments. I moved up to LA when I decided I wanted to get into acting. I moved up to LA, and I was sitting there and I was like, I don't know if this is the right move, but if you want to be an actor, it's 2008, that you had to be in Los Angeles, so I got up to LA. I started doing the LA thing. I signed up at the places to sign up, but it was still, even then, it's way harder than it is now to kind of navigate your way. Now there's a lot more information out there than it was still less. And so I got signed up to places I needed to sign up. And finally I got this casting call. And, and I was teaching English. I was scraping by, doing what I had to make enough money to pay for a place in LA. And what was it? I spoke to my friend who's like, well, you never know. I got this feeling something's going to change for you. And I was like, I don't know about that. It's kind of hard. It's like, just stick with it. You'll see something will come up. And I was like, I don't know, man. I was about ready to kind of throw in the towel and just either move back to where I was living in San Diego or go back to school and finish up my master's, when I got this call. And it's like, hey, we would like you to come to be on this shoot. And I was just like, I don't know. How many days do you want to book me? And they're like, we need you for 3 days. And I was like, dude, I can't get 3 days off of work. Like, it's really challenging. I need more time. Like, you got to decide right now. If you don't tell us right now, we're going to have to pass you over. And I was just like, dude, 3 days. And so I tried to call my work, and my work's like, yeah, probably not. And so I was like, okay. So I was like, yeah, I can't do it. And I was just like, felt defeated. Felt absolutely defeated. And yeah. And so I called back, I actually didn't call back, but I said, if you have anything else, let me know. If you have anything else that might be shorter or longer, let me know. And they're like, okay. Well, I got a call back, and they were like, hey, we got this other role. And it was background work at that time too, but it was still, working on a big production. And they were like, we've got this other role. It's 2 weeks. Would you like to go on to work on this major picture for 2 weeks? And I was like, all right, let's try. And I was like, there's no way I'm able to get 2 weeks off of work. So I had to, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to give my notice. If this
Wow.
doesn't work out, then I'm up shit creek, And so I kind of went forward, kind of like John McClane going down that pipe, where he doesn't know what's on the other end, but you kind of got to go with it because you're already in. I get in, and what was it? I was, playing an Italian riot cop, Carabinieri, for Angels and Demons, and I didn't see set. We got there, and they had us all in holding for 10 days.
Wow.
10 days of all night shoots. 10 days just sitting and holding in a Italian riot cop uniform. And then finally they were like, yeah, we're not going to use you. So you can, just switch into plain clothes. And we went to set finally one day. And it was, it was 12 days of shooting. It was day 11. And
Wow.
They finally were like, well, we want you guys to be able to come out and be in this show. We aren't going to use all of you, but it was really cool. They wanted all of us to be able to have the experience of being able to be part of it. So they brought us all onto set. And I was sitting there thinking, man, I'm really in trouble come tomorrow, where I'm going to be out there looking for work again.
Pay the bills.
And I'm certain I would have found, pay the bills and make sure I can pay my rent. And in that time, I'd done some networking and just really been, meeting people on set, and it was fun. One of the guys I met was he was at that time, he was like a high level production assistant, a PA. And then he was like, hey, Sean, come here. I got something. I want you to come backstage or back over here. And I went back with him. And then he's like, right, you're going to stand right here. And when these guys are doing the lights, you just stand here. Okay. I was like, all right. Like, do what this guy does. And essentially they hired me for the next 3 months as a stand-in to go and do, to do lights on set and to be the actor that they were doing all the lighting with. It took a belief that I could pull something off and a little bit of luck and a willingness to say yes, a willingness to try something. And that's the scariest thing. If someone called me right now and said, Sean, we got this opportunity for you to fly out to this location to take this gig, would you do it? I don't know. It's much more easy to be courageous when you're young. But when you get old, which is why John McClane is so awesome, when you get old, it gets scary. It gets scary to dive down that hole, which is, again, why the late bloomer actor is such a powerful thing. Like, are you courageous? We often lose that courage as we get older,
But I think it's about finding ways to make it work. If you make a decision in life to do something, everyone has hurdles in life, and those hurdles just change. They change in height and they change in complexity, depending on how old or how young you are. And like you said, when you're younger, using the metaphor of the hurdles, they're a bit easier to push over, or just to say, bugger it, I'm going to walk around them. But when you're a bit older, right, and you've got a mortgage and you've got children and you've got bills to pay, those hurdles become a bit more fixed and a lot higher and harder to push over or harder to go round. But it doesn't mean that you can't. And you've just got to find a way. So, yes, sometimes you have to say no to opportunities because of your circumstances, but then another door might open up. And I've talked about the sliding doors principle before, and that's exactly what happened to you. You had to turn down one role, but then you got another which didn't go down as the way it was planned, but it opened up a door for you and gave you a role in the film and networking and everything. And that sort of spreads out. It's like a ripple effect, isn't it? The small stone in the pond.
Yeah.
You don't know what the ripples are going to do when they hit the shore on the other side of the lake.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't know. And I think that taking that chance and putting yourself out there is such a huge thing. And I think that I think one of the most important things is the idea that you can. It's that essential, and again, that's why I'm coming back to the John McClane analogy this time around, because you have a building that's been taken over by a bunch of bad guys, and you have a person with a skill set. It's like, was the Liam Neeson, I have a certain set of skills. He's like,
I will find you.
I will, I will find you. Yeah, right. It's like you have a person with a certain set of skills, and I think one of the things that people forget is how talented we are. And that how gifted each of us is. I had a period of time where I was out of work. I was between jobs, and I went through a long, long job search, and it crushed me in ways. And then I got back into what I was doing on the other side of it, and I had to rediscover that I was talented, that I was gifted at things. There was a photo shoot that I went to with my wife, and I always, even when the other people she has professional photographers taking her photo. I'm also a professional videographer, filmmaker, photographer, but I don't do as much photos these days. But when I do, I dust out. I shoot with my old film camera.
Wow.
It's like,
Love
so
it.
I bust out. Yeah, I bust out my Canon EOS 1. This is like one of the flagship EOS camera that was made before Canon went digital. So this is like the 1D. It was the 1N. And, that's what, if you went to the Olympics or anywhere, that was the camera they had. And I dusted it out, and I went to this one shoot with my wife. And just last week, I took some of the most phenomenal photos that I have ever taken in my life. And I sat there and I looked at them as I was posting some of them, and I was like, I am talented. And I mean, I'm not in an arrogant way, just like having to remind myself, I have something special about me, and I have to believe in myself. And I think so often we forget to believe in ourselves, or we forget what's special about ourselves. And I think that's one of those moments where sometimes you need a John McClane moment, where you just have to wake up to your skill set, where you have to wake up to what you're capable of,
And sometimes you might not even know what you're capable of. And I think John McClane, I love in the second movie, his wife said to him, "Why does this keep happening to us?" Because it was at Christmas as well. But he just finds himself in situations and says, well, I've got a problem, I need to solve it. So it's not about being the hero per se. Even though he plays a police officer, and police officers have to run towards the buildings when the building's on fire and the people are screaming. That's what they do. But still put them in a situation where he doesn't have to, but he found a way because he needed to. Whatever his impetus to do that was what did he want to get the bad guys, or was it purely selfish act to save his wife, or was it because of who he is as a police officer, as a person? I think it's a combination of all of those. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a big, huge hero police officer in a burning building with terrorists. It can be just a problem that you face. Find a way through. If you want to solve it, just find a way. You've got it within you to do it. And and you look at people that we see on TV all the time now that have fallen into drugs or the crime, and you go, well, what makes them choose that path? Is it because they don't believe in themselves or they don't want to fight and push through and achieve their dreams? It's a big story, or a big thought process about how people go down certain paths, isn't it?
Yeah. And, and I think one of the things too, that I really like that you said there is that if, it's kind of like, if not me, then who? Like John McClane was faced with these challenges of some of the later movies, he could have walked away. He said, forget this. I mean, movie 1, he's in the building. He's kind of forced to have to do something because it's kind of like he's locked in.
Yes.
But there are other scenarios, the one where he was in the Die Hard, where he was, I forget the name, but he was with Samuel L. Jackson, and there was that not a Die Hard?
Yeah,
it was. Right?
That was the second. But he was. They sent him to all the bombs, so he really had no choice. Remember, because they had to pull him out. He was drunk, so he was at the depths. Yeah, and there's a whole another gamut of a story there. He was at the depths of his life. He'd been in trouble with the police force for some reason, so they had him on suspension. He was drinking. He was still separated from his wife. He didn't give a shit. Yep. and then he was forced into this situation when he really didn't want to. And there was moments there where he wasn't going to, and I think they almost showed him being suicidal at sometimes. When he had to carry
That's
the
right.
the board on him, just he had
Yeah.
a derogatory message on there about Black Americans, and you could just imagine anyone being in that situation, but he just ran with it.
Which is how he met Samuel L. Jackson's
Yes,
character. That's right.
saved his
That
ass
is
basically.
right. Yep.
Mm,
And that's right.
mm,
Which is also like another thing that was like, I think that they really did well in the other Die Hard movies, was that they identified that, it's much more interesting when we can all pull things off on our own. Everyone is resilient. Everyone can do things on their own, but sometimes unknowingly we will stumble upon a person who might be a future like teammate
mm,
that is most unlikely of matches. That person might be exactly what we need to be, to actually achieve something great. And then that's what that I loved about that movie, is like these two people who were completely different walks of life, but in weird way, they needed each other to kind of achieve something great,
mm,
you know?
mm. And they learnt from each other. And I think by the end of the movie, they were both on different spectrums of lifestyle and
Yeah.
race belief and everything like that. So, but in the end, they came to understand each other's life just that little bit more, to become friends and mates. And if you put it in a real context of life, I think after that experience, they would have been mates forever, and being able to laugh about
Right.
it and to be involved in their own worlds as well. So certainly, we all watch these movies and go, it's just a blow 'em up, action packed, shoot 'em up thing. But I do like it when they try to put something into there that if you dive into the story a little bit more deeper, there's something that you take away from it.
Which is, I think, if you go back to the early foundations of theater and art, the art of the theater, if you go back, and I had a great class in university that was, all about the ancient Greek plays. I got to read Aristophanes, I got to read Sophocles, and look at some of these. And what the beauty was, is it was of sharing these stories that help people not feel so alone, and to look at the depth of what life, we deal with in life. Um, what was it? You have something like, the movie Old Boy, which is this really deep and heavy movie about this guy who's locked away, and then finds, they release him, and like he has this crazy intense relationship with this character who ends up being his daughter. It's like a really, like, oh my goodness, that was just like the ancient Greek play of, Oedipus the King, Oedipus Rex. And they looked at that movie was essentially a very similar
Mm,
storyline to
mm,
this ancient play. And what I'm getting at is that if you look at theater throughout human history, it has been a place where we look at characters put in extraordinary situations and how they overcome and deal with them, to kind of learn and to think about how might we deal with that, like, because that's what it comes back to.
mm,
Like, at the same time, what's so special about John McClane? It's like, what would you do in that situation? What would you do? There's
mm,
this a couple of years ago in the US, the Christians had this really interesting motto: what would Jesus do? What would this do? And people would use it to apply to their life. And I always like thinking about that. What would John McClane do? It's like, what would a certain character do? And it's like, granted, there's different ways to handle things, but like that's what I always think about, is the beauty of cinema, is kind of imagining ourselves in that situation. How would you handle being the main character in Jurassic Park? How
mm.
would you handle, being in Back to the Future, or whatever film it might be? Like, how would you be able to handle that situation?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? About the different way people take away from movies and stories. I mean, some people walk away from a movie and go, "Oh yeah," And you go, what? Are you serious? That was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life. And it makes me want to go out and paint the world and change things. I've walked away from movies like that where I've just gone, you know what? I'm going to become a politician. I'm going to change the world, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay, maybe 2 weeks later you go back to your normal life. But to walk away from a movie and have that confidence in that you could do something. And you never know that,
Right.
yes, you might walk out there with all these grandiose ideas about, I'm going to change the world because of how that movie made me feel. But it might be just a little thing that later on down the path, the way you talk to someone or the way you help someone at work, that you've passed on something to them that you've now taken from that movie. So I think there's something in that for everyone, really.
Right. I love that. Well, let me ask you this. Shifting back to you as a late bloomer actor, what would your dream role be? If you could get cast in any role, let's have it's your big break. What would you love that big break role to be?
Uh, I've been asked these questions a couple of times, and I've always rolled my eyes and go, "Geez, what's the answer?" I should actually research and have something written up. But um, I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic genres. The end of the world
Oh,
stuff. So
right.
I would love to have a movie like that, The Book of Eli or The Road, where I'm the guy that I've just got to draw on so much from so little and to survive. I love those stories and the zombie apocalypses and that. So that would be
All
my
right.
ideal role, just in a movie like that where I own the screen and everything's just so tough and dirty and grungy, and that would be awesome.
Right. Yeah. The second you said that, I thought of Book of Eli. Such a great movie.
Mm. Yeah, so or I Am Legend, of which I'm looking
I Am
forward to seeing the
Legend.
second movie. So yeah, they're all my favourites. So The Road's That's probably one of the darkest apocalyptic
Yeah.
movies I've ever seen. My wife has yet to watch it. I don't think she ever will. So, but it just shows how human nature can want to survive no matter how dark it is. People just keep pushing on.
Right.
So. Mm.
Right. I like that. I think that there's something to be said there because again, it's about that resilience. You take any creature and living creatures, and the body of that creature will attempt to take breath as long as it can. And
Mm.
it's like I think part of us is hardwired to try to keep going even when we don't know for what. And that's what I love about the post-apocalyptic type films, because there's always this, what is it that's keeping the character going? What is it that helps them wake up in the morning in a world that is more challenging? I had a zombie movie a concept that I was bouncing around in my head, and I love the idea of like the old curmudgeon who just moves out to the woods and is just like living out in the woods and doing their thing, and then like as society kind of has fallen, this person's just living out there, and then they have to make the choice as to whether they want to re-engage people as someone comes
Mm.
seeking help or something. I'm sure it's been done before, but
Can be done again.
it's a fun concept,
Mm.
right?
It's
I
funny.
always can.
Yeah, my first lead role in an indie production was actually almost what I just said. It's got a short film called What Remains, and it's a zombie film where all the women had been taken over by a virus and were now zombies. So I was made up with a big beard and bushy hair, mud all over me, sort of thing, and crappy shoes on that I'd made with tape and everything like that. So that was fun, and I was just the same thing, wading through the wastelands, going from A to B, just scrounging. And the story had me finding a young autistic boy that was obviously alone. So my character made the decision, well, I can't leave him out here by himself. And I've pushed through at my own peril to try and to rescue him. So without giving away what happens in the movie, that was there. I've almost already done that role. Yeah, a short indie film, of course, but gee,
Yeah,
certainly was fun.
that's awesome.
So a very good story.
Yeah, man. Those are awesome. Those are the ones. Those are the foundation of our career. You gotta love
Mm.
those.
And that's the
Well,
thing
brother,
too, when
let
you
me
have
ask
those
you.
moments. Sorry,
Yeah.
go on.
No, please do. Please do.
No,
I was going to ask you more about it. So go ahead.
it makes you realize that you're plodding through and going, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. But then if you look back at what you've done and just go, hang on a sec,
Yeah.
I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. So you put everything into perspective and then realize, well, I've done all that. So if I was to stop now, I've obtained all those and I've done all these roles and I've had this much fun. So that's what you've got to look at as well, I think.
You got to
Mm,
keep climbing.
mm,
Well, I love that, man. I love that idea of a vision, and you can't always see the thing that you're building. We get down in it. We get down inside this project that we are working on, or this road that we are going down, and might feel like we're not making progress. But if you could kind of pop up above where you're at and look down, I'm certain that there is progress that has been made that you might not be aware of, but
mm.
you have grown or changed, evolved. And if you haven't, then you should find a way to try.
And it's about knowing that you're having fun. Someone said to me, when you
Amen to that.
when you stop having fun doing what you want, what you're doing, then stop doing it. So, and you were talking
Yeah.
before about your podcast about saying, oh, what if someone told me that in a year's time I'll have a production team and editors and everything like that? But if you go onto your podcast channel, your YouTube channel, and go back to that first episode, remember when you first uploaded
Yeah.
that first episode, and you were learning as you were going. The same with mine. And now you look back and you go, oh my God, that was, for me, it's I think I'm up to episode 16 because I do it monthly, and I've lost count of how many yours is up to. But I remember when the first one came out, and I'm going, all that work and all that time, it's being done. You're doing it. And
Yeah.
someone talked to me. I'm on all the podcast groups on the Facebook, and they go, oh, how do I increase my listeners? I'm only getting 100 downloads. I'm only getting 100 listens. And I go, well, hang on. Put it into perspective. If those 100 listeners sat in a room and listened to you talk for an hour, how would you feel? And they go, oh my
Amazing.
God, yes. Imagine 100 people sitting in a room just listening to a message or an interview that you were doing. And here we are saying, I want more, I want more. But then when you look at the perspective of that, you go, well, okay, if I double my numbers, that's great. But there's still 100 people listening to me each month, and that's brilliant.
I never even thought of it that way. That's beautiful,
Mm,
my friend.
mm.
That's beautiful.
It's
You
nice. It's a
you,
good
you
way to
have
look
to
at
put
it.
things in perspective.
Mm. And
Yeah,
my
that's
wife's
beautiful
going to
perspective.
laugh. My wife's going to laugh at this because I can be so negative about my own life and my own things that I'm doing, and she says, well, don't look at the negative of it, look at the positive. And then I'll get onto a podcast like this and I'll sprout all this positive stuff, and she'll just go, I've been telling you that's what you do all the time. So in my head, I know what I have to do and I know how I have to feel, and it's about that manifestation of your life and having that vision board. It's about wanting the positives to happen and not focusing on the negatives. And I think we all need to learn from that in every aspects of our lives, really, because it's very easy to look negatively at something because that's what's happening. So.
My wife called me on it last night. I was complaining about I was complaining about something I saw on TikTok, and she was like, "You're toxic right now." I was like, "Toxic? That's such a horrible thing to say." And she's like, "Okay, bitter." And I was like, "All right." And and she sat down, and in her most loving, kind way, sat down and she says, "I'm not trying to be mean, but you got to look at that. You got to look at can you keep your optimism up? Can you keep your that inner positive resilience up, not just being resilient, but keeping an outlook that maybe things could pan out, maybe things can turn around, maybe things can be good, holding on to that hope." At least I think
And
so.
knowing what you've got. I mean, I turned 50 last week
Yeah.
and had a nice big dinner party with friends and family, and one of my friends, she stood up and did a speech after mine, and she went through everything that I was doing and identified my bodybuilding and my podcast and my acting and then my real job that I do that I don't talk about online. But she says, you do so much and you own it all and you push through no matter what. And we, as your friends, we truly respect and love watching what you do. And I just sat back and realized oh my God, sometimes I sit here and think my life is full of nothing, but then no, it's not. It's got a lot. And I think we're all the same. Sometimes we forget to look
Yeah.
at what we have right in front of us because we're looking at the person with the greener grass on the other side, so to speak. And it's not always that way, is it?